Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.
Hello, good evening everyone. Welcome to Dave's Tackle Box. It's Sunday the 3rd of February 2013. And that means it's only 3 days till our 2nd anniversary on Vapor Trials TV. So we'll be doing something to commemorate that on Wednesday night on VT Talk, I believe. 2 years, can you believe that? It's incredible. It feels, personally, like I haven't been in this seat. Or at least talking to you guys from this seat, because I've been in this seat quite a lot, for a long time. I think I haven't been here for 3 weeks or something. There was that business I had to take care of, and then last week I was up in Scotland for a lazy weekend away. And it was good, and I took the camera. And I've got a little bit of VT, so that'll be coming up much later in the show. We're also going to be visited tonight by Tim Boniface, our roving reporter from Down South, who has got a little roundup, a little selection of things that he wants to talk about tonight. So that is worth watching. You're going to like that, but not if you're squeamish, probably, because there's a picture. But we're also going to debate the wisdom of a leading US academic and some recent comments as well. So Tim's picked some subjects, and we're going to do those. Also tonight, I've got do you remember my NGP and the way that I kept falling asleep and melting it? Well, we've taken that to a whole new level this week. So I've got a VT on that, which I'm sure those of you who enjoy my misfortune will enjoy quite a lot. That is, I'm welling up here. Let's get the show started. Right, so last week I was in Scotland. Yesterday I was in Wales. Now, I've took the camera with me. I've got loads of footage, and I haven't even watched it all back yet. So there just wasn't physically time to go through it, pick out the stuff that was repeatable and broadcastable, and edit into a coherent VT. But as it's fresh in my mind, I got back this morning. I got back early afternoon, actually, having driven down to South Wales for this meet yesterday. I just want to say a big thank you to Goatee and Cybernoid, both of the UK Vapors Forum, for organising what turned out to be a very well attended, maybe even over attended event. It was great. I had a real good time. I drank a few beers, as did a few others. I vaped some rotting shark flavoured e-liquid. I kid you not, rotting shark flavoured. There'll be more information on that when I when I eventually edit this video together, because its creator, the genius is that Peter Cole from Decadent Vapors, explains it in his own words. Rotting shark e-liquid. But you can't get that anywhere else. But we're going to be pushed for time if I don't get a shift on. So I've got a VT now. which I filmed during the week, actually shortly after I got back from Scotland. It concerns my NGP Touchfire Genesis Hybrid e-cig, and it's not very happy. Watch the video, you'll see what I'm getting at. I like to call this piece NGP RIP. So if you've been watching Dave's Tackle Box for any period of time, you'll know that my relationship with my little NGP Touchfire has been a bit problematic. A very quick recap though. The NGP Touchfire has a touch sensitive switch, which I'll show you in close up in a minute, which basically means if it is touched in the wrong way, the atomizer starts to fire. It doesn't have any sort of electronics for a cut-off or anything like that, so if it starts firing when the switch is activated, it will continue firing until the battery's dead, basically. Now previously I'd had problems with it. I'd been using it in bed, fell asleep, and actually accidentally activated it and melted the top section. I then tried to do a repair on it, which wasn't too successful, and a VTT viewer, Worm 1973, aka Julian, came to my rescue and he sent me a new top section for the NGP. So it all worked again, and I was really happy. But unfortunately, I've now finally killed it properly, I think. I've kind of cleaned up the mess I found, but I've not yet looked at it in detail. I thought we'd do that together with the camera, but I don't expect that it's going to be salvageable this time. But to set the scene for you, I left the NGP, somewhat foolishly it seems now, with a battery in it, standing on my desk when I went up to Scotland last weekend. So I was gone for, I think it was 3 nights I was gone, so the best part of 4 days, and I thought everything was safe. I got home, and I think what's happened is the cat has knocked it over, which shouldn't have been a problem, but there was a problem that I just didn't anticipate. But enough wittering. Let me see if I can show you my theory on what's happened. Right, so this is the NGP Touchfire, and you can probably see that it's not looking very well. I'll get some close-ups in a bit and you'll see that it's not very well at all. But basically the way it's supposed to work is you complete this ring switch, I've shown it before on the show, with your fingers, and that fires the atomizer. Now if it falls over or it's lying on its side like that, that shouldn't be enough to fire the atomizer. It doesn't work at all now, but if it did, that wouldn't be firing. So you would think that with what happened the other day, if it got knocked over and lay on its side like that, you'd be fine. However, it wasn't fine. I came back to find it quite badly melted, lying in a pool of juice. You'll see on the inset, which will be about here somewhere I reckon by the time I've done it, that it's burnt the desk quite badly, which is a little bit worrying because I wasn't around. And I think what's happened is a cat or something has been on the desk and knocked it over, and I'm sure it lay like that for a while absolutely fine. But this is a Genesis atomizer. It has an air hole here, and I think what's happened is, as it's been lying there, the juice that was in it, because it was typically near enough a full tank, leaked out of the hole, and indeed I found it lying in a long strip of juice like that, and I think the juice has completed the circuit. So it's basically fired until either something electrically broke or melted, or the battery's dead, I'm not sure which. All I've done is clear up the mess and wipe all the juice away. I've not yet taken it apart to see the extent of the damage, although it's quite clear that it's pretty badly damaged. But let's have a look at the extent of it. I mean, the first thing that's happened is this was just lying loose, and this is what happened when it overheated with my old one. This plastic cap that sits in the top that accepts your drip tip melts, and so therefore no longer has a tight fit. That's ruined. But it's also melted, if I can find the camera, it's also melted the top, or the bottom of the drip tip. So that's a perfectly good Cherry Vapes Ming drip tip. Also ruined, I think. And they're pretty well joined together now. So I think I've lost them. Let's take the battery tube off. I did have a quick look to see if there's any damage to the battery, and there doesn't seem to be. So I think the battery just ran down, and that was that. And it's a protected battery I had in there, so I don't anticipate any problems with the battery. So I'm going to try and recharge that. Maybe I can salvage that at least. Obviously there's no damage that you can see to the actual battery housing. That seems okay. But if you start to look in there, you start to see the extent of the damage. I'm using a new camera here, and I'm having trouble finding the middle. But you can see in there it's just basically melted plastic. There's no heat below the switch, so you know, it's not like something shorted out. It's just the atomizer fired and fired and fired and fired until it was dead. Now I've not tried to separate these two pieces as yet, but I'm going to try that now. Here we go. Yeah. So I'm taking the top cap off the tank section, and I can hear the sound of creaking plastic as I do it. Let's do that so you can see too. Oh dear. Okay. If we look at the threading on the cap, you can see that it's full of melted plastic with lashings of RY High Five. This is not pretty. Oh dear. Okay. I don't think this is repairable. That's actually, the plastic has melted and the terminal has sort of fallen over. And then the plastic, obviously, eventually, when current stopped, when it stopped working, the plastic has reformed. You can see this is solid plastic. I'm afraid, and it just looking inside the insulation on the connectors there. Look, they go down to the switch. It's all melted inside the tank as well. It's knackered. It is no more. It is an ex-NGP. It has shuttled off this mortal coil. It's taken my Cherry Vape drip tip with it. I may soon be in the market for a new NGP, but probably not the Touchfire. That's just so annoying. I've been so careful with it after I melted it last time. But that's clearly what's happened, is the whole thing has fallen over and probably just lay there for several hours as the juice seeped out, and the juice has then worked as a conductor, completed the switch, and killed it in a really big way. It makes me so sad. Bugger it. So I'm really quite sad about that, but the NGP's dead. Long live the Fugatti. Yeah, I think I'm going to get another NGP in due course, because I really did like that atomizer. But I think I'm just going to steer away from the touch sensitive switch. All I did was leave it on my desk and it's dead. So I think I need something a little bit more robust. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that as moving as I did. Although I suspect you found it funnier than I did. Bloody thing. I mean, all I did was stand it on the desk. You'd think that would be safe, wouldn't you? Anyway. So, yes, I'm in the market for a new NGP. Perhaps not the touch-sensitive switch variety this time. I think I'll go for something with a button or something, or the ring switch one or something. But I've got it. The whole thing, I was just reading chat as that was playing, and somebody said, "Can you replace the tank?" It's a hybrid, so the only bit that's still okay is the base, the metal tube, and I've actually got two of those now because Worm sent me one because he'd got a dead one as well. So that's I'm giving up with this particular variation of electronic cigarette. I don't think it was meant to be. It's dead. Worse than that, it's dead, Jim, as somebody said in chat. Anyway, so there will be no more coverage of NGPs, not that one anyway, on this show, because I haven't got one that works anymore. Right, okay, now, we've got, as I say, Tim is going to be joining me in a short while. And Tim is kind of like our roving reporter. So what we asked him to do each week, he say, like, you know, sniff out some topics, and then we can run through them, talk about them on this show. And he's been quite busy. That's probably because he's had 3 weeks. But he's come up with some real crackers this week. Now, one of the subjects we're going to cover, I just want to play for you. I've done an excerpt from it that's just a couple of minutes long. Because the full piece is like 13 minutes, but I think what I've edited out of it actually gives you a flavour of the rest of it. Trust me, you hear this bit, you've heard the lot. It's a conversation, it's a recording of a conversation that took place on American radio, on NBC it was. Sort of Wake Up, I think the programme was called. It's hosted by a DJ presenter, goes by the name of Carson Daly, who I must admit I'd never heard of, but I've googled him and he seems like a decent bloke. So he's the host, and he's got a guest on to talk about electronic cigarettes. And the guest is a guy whose name is a bit of a gobful in its own right. He's Stanton Glantz, and he's a PhD, he's a very educated man. His current job title is he's a professor. He's the Department of Medicine and Director for the Centre for Tobacco Control Research and Education at UCSF. That's the University of California, San Francisco. So, you know, this is a leading guy who, you know, a lot of people will listen to. And during this interview on NBC with Carson Daly, he's asked a question about electronic cigarettes, because the bit that you don't hear in this clip is Carson Daly has been talking about a friend of his who has used them and has stopped smoking cigarettes by using electronic cigarettes. And that's kind of where we join in. Like I say, we're a couple of minutes and then we'll invite Tim in and we'll have a chat about it. So have a listen to this, and without me preempting too much, this is a radio DJ and a very educated guy who's done a lot of research into tobacco control.
Sorry.
Keep your finger on the cough button.
Yeah, it's okay. Just give me your minutes on the e-cigarette.
Well, it's kind of the Wild West with these things. They're being promoted with all. Well, first of all, what they are is it's a little battery-operated device that has a vial of fluid with nicotine and other chemicals in it. And when you suck on it, it flips a little switch which turns on a heater, which vaporizes some of the nicotine solution, and then that's what you breathe in and breathe out.
Right.
And the FDA tried to regulate them as drug delivery devices, which I think the FDA was right. But the e-cigarette industry got a federal judge to agree that they were actually cigarettes. So at the moment, they're not regulated at all. And that's one of the real problems, because there's a lot of claims being made for them, like that they're helpful for smoking cessation, that haven't really been scientifically tested. Another problem, and as Catherine Hagel said, at least as you saw it, that they don't have anything but nicotine in them. That's just not true. They have a lot of other chemicals in them. It's not as much as a conventional cigarette, but there are heavy metals in them. There are carcinogens in them.
Oh, there are.
Oh, yeah. One of the problems with them is there's very poor quality control on them. And so there have been a little bit of research on them, and the actual dose of nicotine they deliver is not very well related to what they claim they deliver. You don't just exhale water vapor, which is another claim they're making. Because
it is pretty odorless and smokeless. I mean, they're pretty benign. If you're sitting there, Jason was smoking one of your house badge, and he just was taking hits off it and releasing what looked just like. I mean, Letterman smoked one on the air, and it seemed very benign.
Well, it's certainly. I mean, it's
better than a cigarette, right?
Better, yeah. But it is better than a cigarette. But that's sort of like saying it's better not to jump out of the 50th story of a building. A cigarette is a hugely polluting and
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.
And good evening, eventually. Took a little while to get things lined up and ready to go then, didn't it? But I'm here now, so welcome to Dave's Tackle Box on Sunday.
So there we go, I'm back in the room and not long to go now. So yeah, I was talking with my son and he's watching me make things before.
And a very good evening to you. It is Tuesday the 20th of November 2012 and you are tuned into BBC
At Vaportrans TV Towers. Tonight being Wednesday night, it is time for the one and only chat show programme called VT Talk.
Tis the Haze Hour. Again, Keith was just saying if it wasn't for the titles, he wouldn't come and do the show. He loves them so much, don't you?
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.
And welcome back, everybody. And we're joined by Tim Bonyface. Hi, Tim. How's things?
Hello, mate. Hey. Oh, things are really great. I mean, that's gone down really well, that hasn't it?
Yes,
man Stanton.
There were a few comments in chat from Mr. Stanton there. I've just realised if I take you full screen, you'll be visually more appealing. There you go. So how's that? Right. Yes.
Much
okay.
better.
I mean, just ignore for a moment the. I mean, how can you take anything seriously from a guy who bought a cardigan without any sleeves for a start?
I know. I mean, a very well-educated man who shouldn't have been saying the things he was saying, to be honest. I mean, that was something that was brought to my attention on Friday by Kev from Vapor's Place, because he co-presented a radio show with me, and he came along with that clip under his arm, and the actual reaction from our chat on the radio show was pretty similar to what we're getting here, but there was a little bit more strong language. Shall we say? Lots of people called him a cat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Quite. I mean, I would never say anything that I couldn't substantiate. And I certainly wouldn't want to invite any lawyers' letters or anything. But suffice it to say that you could understand that somebody who knew a little bit about e-cigs, and having listened to that, you could understand how somebody could come to the opinion that he's a bit of a twat.
Yeah, I could have done, and also with Carson Daly, he probably could have called somebody else in to do that slot, because there's plenty of other people out there. Because he was talking about his friend who's given up using electronic cigarettes.
The context of the 13-minute piece is, he's very positive about it. I mean, he was kicking back a bit against the guy, wasn't he? He was saying it looked very benign. And I was sat next to a guy, and it didn't seem like a problem. But the way you said, what was it, heavy metals and carcinogens? I mean, that's just an outright load of crap, isn't it?
Well, yeah, basically. I mean, so somebody actually commented in our chat there must be uranium in there or something like that. It's like it's a nuclear powered e-cig. We had all that sort of stuff going on, but the guy's a twat. And he obviously needs to talk to somebody who's done a little bit of research, because he blatantly says that nobody knows anything about them. It's the Wild West.
Which begs the
what
question,
are we doing playing with them?
Which begs the question what the director of the Centre for Tobacco Control Research at UCSF actually does, because he clearly hasn't researched anything, has he?
No, not at all.
He probably at some point has talked some sense about the dangers of smoking and all the rest of it to people, but how can you take anything serious when they come out with that poorly researched rubbish?
Yeah, you can't, mate. I mean, it's going to go on for a little while, that one, because the Americans are all jumping up and down about it, and if I remember rightly, it's been tweeted all over the place in the States, and I think they're going to try and get Carson Daly to actually have somebody on who knows what they're talking about. So there may be some sort of balance for the piece, as it were.
Well, there's a cracking comment in chat there from Tracy Collins, actually, which was that long-term academics, forget about that thing called research. Yeah, and I suppose the other thing that has to be said as well is, academic prowess is not necessarily a sign of common sense as well. I mean, if he really cares about the damage that cigarettes are doing, maybe he'll hear some of this feedback he's getting and go and do his research. Anyway, let's.
He still belongs to quit or die. That's his thing. So.
Well, exactly, as the majority of them do, sadly. It's a bit of a shame, but anyway, I don't really want to talk about him that much more, do you?
No.
Should we talk about something more interesting? Yeah.
Yes.
Now, it's kind of a neat little follow-in, really. Now, you contacted me, it was about a week ago now, and you mentioned somebody that had come into your shop, or somebody that you know. You know in real life, anyway. They basically normally smoke or vape a juice from a reputable seller.
Yes, indeed
they switched and used some juice that they'd picked up from somewhere, and we're not going to name those people because we don't actually know, do we? A bit of market seller, was it, or something?
It was basically that, a market seller. Yeah.
Right, and let me be clear. I know a lot of very reputable market sellers, but
That's right.
So this just happens to be where this guy bought this bottle of juice. Explain to him what we think this juice did to him.
Well, we think this juice has irritated his mouth somewhat. Now, I've done a bit more research since we spoke earlier on today.
Right.
And it took pretty much 4 to 5 days for the effects to come through. It wasn't immediate.
Right.
So he's vaping away on this juice that he bought for sort of 4 to 5 days, and he started to notice that he was getting burns in his mouth and mouth ulcers.
Shall I put that picture up?
The guy's sorry.
There we go. No, talk away. Just give people a little idea.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, basically, he vaped away on this juice. And he bought. I mean, it was 30 mils of juice for £7.99. So, I mean, price wise, it's similar to everybody else's, and less than quite a few. But he noticed that he was getting ulcers and burns in his mouth, and he had to end up going to the doctor for medical treatment. Basically, now I can't confirm that the doctor has said this was the reason for it all, but it was the only thing that's been different about his vaping routine since he started. So, I mean, 2 and 2 makes 4, and therefore he needed £14 worth of prescriptions to put his mouth right.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I suppose we should stress that we can't categorically state it was that juice, but that seems like the most likely cause of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does indeed.
It would be. I mean, I don't suppose he's got any of it left.
Well, no. I mean, I did ask that question because it would have been very nice to have sent it away for a little bit of analysis, just to see what's actually in there.
But
and find out whether it was extremely high in nicotine content, perhaps.
Or maybe you could get some more or something. Yeah.
when you see the little Chinese guy at the market, can you buy some more of that? Yeah. Funnily enough, I mean, what comes out of it is if there's a guy in a pub who's got DVDs in one box and e-juice in the other box, don't buy any of it.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, we're kind of making light of that, and the guy wasn't seriously hurt or anything, and that's great. But I mean, I tell you what I've got a problem with at the moment, and I don't know whether you've noticed on the UK Vapors Forum this week, there's been some more talk about juices being sold with diacetyl in there. And, and now it should be said, and I had some things pointed out to me at the vape meet I was at yesterday, actually, that there aren't. It's not a guarantee that if you are vaping juice with diacetyl in it, you're going to be seriously harmed. But over a period of time, there's a good chance that you're going to need an iron lung. It's a bad thing, and it's a bit like this suspect juice that we're talking about there now. It's very difficult in the current climate when people are telling us that we need regulation, and this sort of stuff is going on. I mean, you shouldn't be in a position where you're buying juice with diacetyl in it, and the fact that it's mentioned amongst the ingredients on the label, I don't think is really a good defence for any vendor or manufacturer, to be honest with you. We know there's a risk with this stuff. It shouldn't be put in there. There are alternatives. There are the bigger, certainly the juice suppliers that I use, they use alternatives. It gives the buttery taste. So if you like dulce de leche, that's where I first came across the idea of this, and I went and checked that there was no diacetyl in it, you see. And I got that was from Perfumer's Apprentice, and I got a quite abrupt, of course there isn't, kind of reply, and a lab report showing me everything that was in it. It meant nothing to me, but I could see there was no diacetyl in it. And it's very difficult, and I'll confess that I'm a little bit conflicted at times, because we don't want this kind of medical regulation, but I tell you what, we don't do ourselves any favours sometimes, or the industry doesn't do itself any favours sometimes, when we've got this kind of thing going on. I mean, it would be, my thoughts on that is we should probably arrange for Trading Standards to go and visit that guy.
Yeah, man, that's definitely something that I've got in mind as well. There's a few people that have popped up down this area, which are doing the same. There's another guy that I'm looking at the moment, and I've actually got some of his juice coming into me sometime this week, because he's just. I mean, I don't know where it comes from or anything as yet, but the bottles that I've seen are just, I stuck a label on it in my house, and here it all is with tobacco written on it, and that's all it says: tobacco 18 milligram or tobacco 24. So
I'm guessing he hasn't got the chip compliant labelling. And
no, nothing like that at all. Nothing like that at all. And it's £3.50 for 10 mils.
You see, we can argue about the benefits of the chip regulations and all the rest of it, but the fact is, it's the law, isn't it? And if people aren't following the existing laws, then there's going to be, we're feeding ammunition to those that would tighten the laws.
Well, an interesting fact is there is a trader down our way. And he recently was applying to get onto a Facebook-style selling site. And they always check on these little sites whether you've had any problems. Now, he's got 36 trading standards strikes against him from the last 12 months.
So it's three a month,
needless to say, he's not allowed on that site.
That's scary.
And they're all to do with chip compliancy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's not rocket science; it's common sense.
Yeah, and you know, and I just really want to stress, because I know that I know a number of very reputable vendors who work market stalls. You know, I mean, what is the advice to people? You know, check the label on the bottle is a good start, I guess, is it?
Yeah, check the label. If it's got its little warning triangle, if it's got its little child-proof lid on it, then there's a fairly good chance that it's going to be a reasonable quality juice. But I mean, if it's just in plain squidgy little bottles with a label stuck on it, which you've just printed off your computer, or the guy's just printed off his computer, then I mean, I would leave well alone. I mean, you've got to put it into your body.
You used an expression earlier when we were chatting. You said, you know, be wary of buying juice from a bloke in a pub.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of them springing up, and I'm sure there's going to be more.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. And we've got one more thing that we wanted to squeeze in tonight, and this is a point that you were making. Carl Phillips did his report a little while back, and he talked about the tipping point for he was talking generically, but it's an argument that applies to e-cigarettes. There's a tipping point at which point they, to use my crude terminology, become mainstream, and they're suddenly going to start happening. You've been seeing a little bit of change already in 2013 in the people working through your shop door, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, I mean, these aren't people that were making New Year's resolutions or anything. These are people who have seen their friend down the pub having a vape. They've had a go. Where'd you get it? Oh, I got it from the chap in the town. Up they come, in they come. My friend had one of those. Can I have one? And it's not something which just happens every now and again. It's happening really, really regularly. I mean, I've seen, since November, I've seen our weekly turnover double. And that's all new business. I mean, I was hoping to give some sort of amounts of kits that we've sold since Christmas, but I couldn't quite work out how to get that out of the system. But I'll play with that and perhaps have that another time. But it seems that the tipping point is pretty much sort of starting to go, and people are just buying it because of the recommendation of a friend, because they've seen a person with them. And it's not very difficult to walk down the high street where I live and not see somebody vaping away, you know, in the shopping centre or whatever. It really is happening down here in the south.
Well, that's really interesting because I haven't noticed that yet. I've noticed a bit more of a buzz around, and I've spoken to a couple of vendors this year who've said, you know, that things are busy in this last month. But that's quite common, isn't it, in the industry because of New Year's resolutions and stuff like that. But you think that it's really on the ascendancy now?
I certainly do, and I mean I've spoken to Russell, of course, and he's got a shop up north there. And he's noticed things picking up, you know, pretty well as well over the last few weeks. So it's something that's happening all over the UK. I'm sure it's going to happen in places where e-cigs have been mainstream for longer, a lot quicker. But it certainly would seem that is starting to happen now.
That's excellent. That's really good to hear. That's good to hear. I'm very firmly in the camp that the more mainstream this is, the harder it is for them to ban it. That's where I'm coming from. So absolutely. I'm a fan of anything in the industry, you know, sort of doing well at the moment. We're coming close to time, but I'd say you've probably got about a minute, so I'm going to let you plug your radio show if you want.
Oh, go on then. Why not? So yes, the radio show. Friday nights, RY4 Radio, put together a little while ago by Tony Two Sticks. Now, I've been looking after it for a while, and the show runs between 9 and 11 o'clock. We have guests on, we give stuff away. I'm working on the co-host thing because it works so well with Kev from Vapour's Place. I mean, we're great mates on air anyway, so I mean we get on really well, and we had a really good show, so I'm hoping that'll be more regular. We have Rob from Malta on Tuesday nights between 9 and 11, bit of rock, again giveaways, vaping chat, people can Skype in. we're looking to increase it. We did have some more shows running, but they've fallen by the wayside a little bit. And I do believe that a couple of the chaps from here on VTTV will be joining us for a show very shortly. So it could be Daz and Gary putting something together, sort of loosely based around a chatty co-hosted show.
I did hear a rumour of that. And that's taken us neatly till time. Well done, Tim.
Oh,
it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure
as always.
See you next week.
See you next week.
We're going to take a break. Be back in a couple of minutes.
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.
iVapor and iVapor Elixir, based in Yorkshire, for your e-cig needs. That's ivapor.co.uk and ivapor-elixir.co.uk. iVapor and ivapor-elixir.co.uk, proud sponsors of vaportrails.tv. If you can't watch our shows live, try some of these. Go to YouTube at youtube.com/user/vaportrailstv and you can subscribe there. All of our shows are uploaded as soon as possible after they've gone out live. Enjoy watching it on YouTube. Lots of people do. Alternatively, go to Google and type in podcast vaportrails.tv and iTunes. Click on the link and that will take you to a page that shows you the Vapor Trails TV podcast. View it in iTunes, and when you get to iTunes, don't forget to click on subscribe free, and each of the shows will be downloaded to your hard drive as soon as they come out. Or you can use video on demand. Go to www.vaportrails.tv, click on vPlayer, pick the show you want to watch, in this case it's the Haze Hour, and then you can pick the episode that you want to watch from every one that we've ever done. They're all there. Under normal circumstances, you'll watch it at 360p, which means everybody can see it. It'll go full screen. You can do whatever you want with it. So there you go, 3 ways that you can watch vaportrails.tv. Subscribe and enjoy. Thanks.
Cloud9 Vaping, sponsors of Dave's Tackle Box.
Always a pleasure to have Tim on the show. Very knowledgeable guy about not only about the products that we use, but the way people are using them. Because he's day to day, he's dealing with vapors, and he sees and he hears things that the rest of us don't get. So thanks for that, Tim. Right now, we've still got quite a lot to come tonight, and quite a short time to do it in. So I better get on with it. Last week, I was in Scotland for the weekend. It was a jolly. It was nothing to do with vape meats or anything like that. It was basically, well, it was whiskey tasting and stuff like that. So, but obviously before I could set out, there's the fundamental, the most important thing that a vapor does when they're preparing for a trip. And this is it. In a few hours, I'm going to be leaving to drive on my way to Scotland for just a weekend break. It was a birthday present from my beloved. It's a malt whiskey tasting weekend. I forget the name of the place, but it's in Scotland, somewhere near Oban. So it's quite a long drive. So what we're doing, because we can't leave until sort of tea time, today being Thursday, we're going to get a bed and breakfast in the Lake District, which is about halfway up, and then drive up into Scotland early tomorrow. So I'm now faced with that thing that all vapers have to deal with when they're leaving home for a few days. I'm going to be away for 3 nights. What vaping gear do I take with me? I hate this bit. I've been using heavily my Genesis atomizers, the Fagatti over there, and the NGP, and this thing, the Orion 2.1. I've been using that pretty much since I got home from Germany just before Christmas. And I'm going to take this with me, with the 18650 extension tube and a bunch of batteries and stuff. But the fact of the matter is that this thing, you can't leave it on its side. It's not the friendliest device for pocket carrying because it will leak through the air hole. But for in the car or in the hotel in the evenings, it'll be fine. But I don't want, on a short break, to be spending much time re-wicking stuff, and I don't want to take blow torches and wire and all the rest with me. So whilst I'm going to take this with me, basically if that coil fails me, then it's going in the box until I get home. So I've been sitting here racking my brains, looking at what I've got, thinking what's the best stuff to take with me. I've kind of come up with a pile of stuff here which I'm going to try and fit into a sensible sized box, which should get me through 3 nights and best part of 4 days away. Okay, I admit it, this is probably way too much gear for a 3-day break, but I don't like taking chances and risking getting caught out. So what I've got here is I've got this little Tupperware box thing, which has served me well for trips recently, and I'm going to fill it with stuff basically. What I've tried to do is I've tried to account for stuff that I can use in the car and in the hotel room and stuff, but then also other stuff in case I need to be a bit stealthier. So I've kind of gone for stuff with big battery life and stuff like that. So I'll go through what I've got. I'm going to use this in the car on the way up, I think. This is one of those Kearfarnis Privé tanks. It's a Carto tank, which I opened up last night for the first time. I bought it last year at Vapefest Ireland, I think it was Vapefest Ireland, I can't remember, but I bought it and then I never did anything with it. So I opened it up last night, put it on the Pravari. It looks quite nice, doesn't it, that on the Pravari? So I'm going to take that and the Pravari, and obviously just in case the worst happens, a new cartomizer went in last night, so it'll probably be good for the trip, but just in case, I've got a packet of cartomizers. There's 4 in there, I think, and a Carto punch. It's a Cyan Mods Carto punch. And because of the way this tank, you remove this little knurled screw here and fill it with the syringe. You don't slide the Carto down and top it up. You undo this. I can show you. Take the drip tip out. You've got this little knurled screw here, which you can unscrew. And there's a hole in the top. You stick a syringe down there and you can fill it up without removing the Carto. So I thought that actually could be quite practical as far as Carto tanks go. Batteries. I'm taking a charger, and I've got another battery on charge over there. I'm taking basically 4 18490s, a couple of 18350s, they're for the Orion, but I'm also going to take the extension tube for the Orion so that I can use 18650s in there. And then I've got 5 18650s here, which I think, to be honest, there's probably enough here not to have to use a charger, but just in case, you know. I'm also going to take a couple of Egos. There's one on charge, and then this other one. I've got a 650 milliamp hour Ego, which is a bit worse for wear, as you can see, but it works. So between that and the cartomizers, and I'm going to chuck one of these big cartomizers in as well, I'm going to keep that in my bag. That's an ellipse, because I'm figuring like there might be some places like in the restaurant and stuff where I can't sort of walk around with something hefty like this. I won't want to. So it's quite a posh hotel apparently. So I'm taking my ellipse and therefore some replacement atomizer coils. They don't take up much space, so we might as well put those in. And for this I'm going to take some 45mg juice. The MVP, I figured I'm going to be doing some walking and going out with the camera and stuff over the next couple of days. So the MVP seems like a good choice for that. I'll let you know how I get on with it. I need a syringe to fill that coffin tank, and it's also a lot easier to fill the ellipse tanks with that as well. If I'm taking egos and the charger for the MVP, then I use one of these now. It's an Apple iPhone USB power supply thing. It's more compact and less likely to catch fire than some of those other Chinese ones. So I've got a PCC with another ellipse in there. Oh, I've already got some replacement atomizers in the cap of that as well, so I probably don't need to take those. Base cap for the Provari, so I can switch to 18650 because it's an 18490 in there at the moment. And that's pretty much everything, I think. I'll be back, because otherwise there'll be nobody to play it out. But I'm taking the big camera with me, and the little camera, and I'm going to try and get some footage of where I'm going, because it should be rather beautiful. Hopefully I'll be able to show you some footage of what it was like where I went. See you later. And I don't know whether anybody noticed, I only just noticed this, the wardrobe failure. I'm wearing the same shirt as I was in that video, but I promise you that was last week, and I have washed the shirt. It was clean on today. So yeah, so that's what I took with me, and it all worked out pretty much exactly the way I expected it to, actually. One little thing which I kind of knew, but I hadn't really figured on, if I can find it. No, somewhere is the charging cable for the MVP, and it's got an iPhone connector on it as well. So I actually took along the iPhone charging cable, and then realised I didn't need to. So basically I could unplug the iPhone, turn it 90 degrees, plug in the MVP. Brilliant. That was good. I didn't use the battery charger. But anyway, so we did it. We went to Scotland. We stayed over on the Thursday night in the Lake District, just a B&B, because it's about halfway up, and it was all good. And then we got up on Friday morning, and there was no internet connection where we stayed in the Lake District, so we put like BBC News on, and there were the weather warnings for last Friday for the west coast of Scotland. So we actually weren't that convinced we were going to make it to the hotel, but we took the camera, and Fiona managed to film some stuff out the window on the way up, and I got a little bit of footage there, just a few minutes worth. So here is Scotland. This is Scotland. Where is it? If I can find it. I hope it took me ages to edit. And there you go. That was that. And I've overrun. Not by much, but a bit. So it's time to go. I'll see you next week. We'll have Tim back on the show next week. And obviously we'll be talking and looking at some footage of the South Wales mini-meet at which I was yesterday. But for now, I've got to get off or I'm going to get a kicking. Closing credits. Thanks for watching. Bye.